You are about to enter a world of darkness. I cast you out, unclean spirit!
Albert Fish, also known as the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Boogeyman, the Old Man, the Grey Man, the Pedophile, the Murderer, and also the Cannibal.
That's when the cannibalism started.
Albert Fish sexually assaulted 100 kids, murdered 15 of them, and ate 4 of them. Yes, he ate 4 of them. Albert Fish's sickness started when he was a kid. He was actually in an orphanage where he was living with other kids as well, and it was run by a nun. The nun basically would always whip them with this thing called the 9 cat's tail pedal. I think it's called the 9 cat's tail pedal. I'm not so sure about this sadist stuff because I'm not a sadist. Albert Fish actually enjoyed getting whipped, and he decides to whip other kids as well. That was the beginning of something horrific. Albert Fish murdered 100 kids. Sorry, not 100 kids. Albert Fish murdered 15 kids, sexually assaulted 100 kids, and ate, yes, I say ate, 4 of them.
Fucking disgusting.
Albert Fish was a sick man. He suffered 2 major sicknesses that resulted into all his disgusting acts that he did. One of it is called paranoid psychosis with religious complex. Don't understand what I'm saying, right? Paranoid psychosis with religious complex basically means... That's such a mouthful. Paranoid psychosis with religious complex, which basically means that all the act and all the crimes that he did, he believed that God told him to do it. To sacrifice kids. He said that even Abraham sacrificed his kid. That's why he did it. He's an idiot.
Stupid idiot!
The second sickness that Albert Fish suffers from is called paraphilic disorder.
Fucking genius!
It's basically sexual masochism, sadism, and yes, even pedophilia. This guy.
Whoa, Rick, check this guy out!
Albert Fish has a really weird sexual fantasy. He always believes that he needs to inflict pain on himself, inflict pain on others, others inflict pain on him to attain a sexual high. What the He even beat himself up with the sharp pedal with sharp nails. Sharp pedal with sharp nails. I mean pedal with sharp nails. He will beat himself while pleasuring at the same time. Your never break also, you lucky. He has also been known to insert needles into his pelvic area while this is disturbing, masturbating at the same time. According to an x-ray taken after his arrest, shown in the picture over here, you can see clearly there's about 27 different types of needles that is in his pelvis. He put it in so deep that he can't take it out anymore.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
Albert Fish at one point of time was actually living a normal life. He was married with 6 kids. I just can't believe he's married with 6 kids.
You're unbelievable.
Yes, he was married with 6 kids. And on one fateful day, his wife decides to leave him, which is the turning point of him committing his crimes. Among all his crimes, there was 3 prominent crimes that happened. These 3 crimes will lead to his eventual arrest. The following cases that I'm going to discuss is so disturbing that I highly advise, if you don't have the stomach to stomach this, just watch us. Support our brother. Come on. Support me. Support. Albert Fish's first prominent case was the murder of Francis McDonald. On July 14, 1924, Francis McDonald got kidnapped and disappeared from his home in Staten Island, New York. His body was found hanging by a tree near his home. According to the police report, he was sexually assaulted, strangled by his subsenders, bandits, and there was extensive laceration all over his body, and even a part of his flesh was stripped off his leg.
No one can stop death.
This is getting worse and worse. The second prominent case of Albert Fish is the murder of Billy Gaffney. Billy Gaffney was taken away from his apartment and it was witnessed by his 3-year-old brother who called the guy that kidnapped him the boogeyman. Gaffney was taken to an abandoned house at this place called the Riker Avenue Dump. There was no one there and he was brought to that place where he eventually died and got eaten. When Albert Fish brought him to the abandoned house at Riker Avenue, stripped him naked, bounded his leg and his hands, gagged him, and left him alone for 12 hours before he eventually came back. The following day at 2 p.m., he got back and he basically started sexually assaulting Billy Gaffney, started cutting him up, cutting off his nose, his ears, even his pee-pee. Poor kid. He lacerated his mouth from ear to ear. He even gouged out his eyes.
I got my eyes on you.
After he died, Albert Fish did the most disgusting thing one could ever do. He cut him up from his belly and drank his blood. He would eventually cut up all his body and only keep those parts that he wants to eat. All those unwanted parts were put into a potato sack together with some heavy boulders, and it was thrown into a murky, slimy river, never to be found again. For the other parts, he kept it for 9 days straight, and he basically roasted the kid's butt cheeks, made stew out of his nose, eyes, and mouth. And yes, he even ate his pee-pee. Okay, this is getting very disturbing now. This was the third and final case that eventually got Albert Fish arrested and sentenced to death by the electric chair. The murder of 10-year-old Grace Budd. On May 25, 1928, Albert Fish came across a classified advertisement of an Edward Budd, 18 years old, the elder brother of Grace Budd. Albert Fish had an idea, and so he decided to visit the Budd family on May 28, 1928. When he got there, he saw that Edward Budd was an 18-year-old big man. He was wondering whether it was suitable for his sexual appetite and for his appetite.
And I'm with the 12-gauge bucket, chicken nugget.
He was worried that Edward Budd might overpower him if he tried to attack him and kill him. Edward told Albert Fish that he has another friend called Willie that wants to work as well. Few days later, Albert Fish decided to go with it. He told the Budd parents that he will come down to pick Edward and Willie back to his farm in Manhattan. Eventually, he decided to delay the visit and decided to come few days later. When he arrived, he came across 10-year-old Grace Budd, and the whole plan changed. He decided not to take Edward and Willie to his farm and decided to create a lie to the Budd parents. He told the parents that he has a niece party and he would love to bring Grace Budd to his niece's party. Their parents were worried, thinking that this stranger is trying to bring my niece. What niece? Is trying to bring their daughter to his niece's party. But they thought if they would allow it, he would eventually hire Edward and Willie. And so they agreed lah.
Let's get ridiculous!
And that was the last time they saw Grace Budd. Eventually, Albert Fish brought Grace Budd to his house in Westchester, New York. When he got there, Grace saw that there were flowers in front of his house. So she decided to go and pick some flowers. He, however, went up to his room, got his saw and all his other equipments for the eventual murder of Grace Budd. He got naked because he didn't want to stain his shirt with any of her blood and called her up into the room. She eventually went up to the room looking for him, and he decided to come out of his hiding naked, and that's where she knew everything was wrong. She struggled with him to try to get away and started crying, but Albert Fish strangled her to death. After he murdered Grace Budd, he decided to strip her naked, cut her up into pieces, and kept her over the next few days for his meals. He eventually ate every part of her till there was nothing left but bones. Nobody knew who was the cannibal that ate all these kids. But Albert Fish made one very, very big mistake. He decided to send a letter to Grace's mom detailing the murders and also the eventual eating of Grace Budd. From the letter itself, police managed to track him to the workplace that he was currently working at that point of time, which made them track him back to his home. He wasn't home at that time, so the police had to wait for him to come back home. Eventually, they caught him. Albert Fish was later convicted of all the murders and sexual assault that was related to the 3 cases. He was initially charged for 2 cases, but he confessed to the murder of Francis McDonald, the first case that we spoke about in this video. Albert Fish was sentenced to death and they put him on the electric chair. Why I decided to talk about Albert Fish is because it was a really interesting case and it was reportedly the first ever documented cannibal case that happened. And Albert Fish is a renowned sexual predator and cannibal till this very day. Last but not least, I'm going to enjoy my chicken wings. Thank you everyone for watching this video. Once again, thank you everyone for watching my channel.